Alright, hey, what's up, lads? This is a storyline video where calling it a storyline is an understatement. It's more of a story web. Starting from Nocturne and Twitter and going all the way to the new map that just recently came out, Alpha Omega. It's a long one, so I hope you find my voice the opposite of annoying. And, why not begin? On June 4th, 1945, German trucks were transporting Element 115 alongside the Undead. Little did they know, above them, an Allied plane malfunctioned and started to stall, thus ending in a crash. They crashed right into the trucks and everyone died. Well, except for 4 Marines who were passed out. They then woke up to zombies running towards them, so in an act of survival, they flee to a bunker nearby, also known as Nocturne Untoden, and fend for themselves until either they escaped or survived. We don't know if they survived. They probably died, if we're gonna be real. Before continuing to the next map, Root, you need to know and understand Group 935. They are a group led by Dr. Maxis, where their main goal is to win the war for Germany. He eventually recruited Dr. Richthofen, and what Richthofen was doing was testing on other humans. So Root is an insane asylum, and guess what? They have torture rooms. So this is perfect testing grounds for Group 935. Now, Peter McCain, an American OSS spy, was sent to Varuk to get information. He eventually became compromised and the Marines got involved. They sent a team led by Ultimus Tank Dempsey to rescue him. They don't find him. Long story short, the entirety of the team was killed except for one, Tank Dempsey, who was now a test subject alongside 2 other people. Richthofen got his hands on Nikolai and Tokyo. As from Peter McCain, he escaped to Shinonuma. Shinonuma, a Division 9 facility, is a fun map to talk about, because sure there's small lore, but really and truly the Ultimus team of Richthofen, Nikolai, Tokyo, and Dempsey only went to the Rising Sun facility located in Japan for one reason. It was just to get Richthofen's notes and diary. Richthofen goes over everything and starts formulating a plan to get the dub against Samantha. Now this map has a huge domino effect, and I'll go into that when I get to the effects of it in the future maps. A good question anyone could be asking is, well, why are the other 3 characters helping Richthofen? Well, Richthofen brainwashed them. I mean, you're not just going to test on them and expect them to trust you. So, brainwashing is like the obvious answer, right? And another good question anybody will ask is, who's Samantha? How is she involved? Well, she's the daughter of Dr. Maxis. Now I'm going to do like a predate thing where I'll discuss what happened before Nocturne Totem, like before everything's happening. And some of it kind of sprinkles in between the maps. So I'll try to get into that as in depth as I can. When Group 935 recruited Richthofen, they didn't know he was acting upon the Illuminati. That's pretty crazy stuff, huh? He was at heart evil, so he was focusing on teleportation. Maxis was against this because it was a waste of time, so Richthofen continued behind his back. He was working with a man named Dr. Schuster. Richthofen was weird because after experimenting on humans, he wanted to test on himself, and he teleported to the moon due to his volunteering of the teleportation experiment. He stumbles upon a device called the MPD, where its origins will be discussed later. He is zapped by the MPD and is starting to hear voices in his head, eventually driving him mad. I don't know what type of retard would go touch a pyramid on the moon, but I mean, Richthofen needs to do it. He is then obsessed with Agartha, which is later revealed as a perfect world. The voices in his head must have told him all about it. He is then teleported to a later discussed map, Shangri-La, where he finds the focusing stone, which is full of 115. So he returns to Schuster after having an idea for a moon base. Later it will be known as Griffin Station. They start teleporting stuff to the moon, but how do they do this behind Maxis's back? Well, when you're playing Horizon Drac, you know that place is called Eagle's Nest. Well, that place actually originated way back in the day in the 1300s, and Richthofen and Group 935 used it for testing grounds. So Griffin Station took around 2 years to complete, and traveling from Griffin Station to the moon was the most efficient way they could do it behind Maxis's back. After it was all done, Dr. Groff was set as lead scientist for the moon base. Richthofen then drops the egg that the MPD is a direct connection to the Aether. This means that other dimensions are possible. Later, the experiments Richthofen did also would go against PETA, for Richthofen decided to test on Samantha's dog, Fluffy. He eventually turned Fluffy into a hellhound, While the Hellhound is in the teleporter, Samantha runs to her friend, Fluffy, and Maxis was like, dude, yo, you know those things kill, right? So he runs to the teleporter trying to protect Samantha, for then Richtofen to lock the teleporter and send them to separate locations thinking that he killed them. Samantha goes to the moon, and Max is to the crazy place. Samantha stumbles upon the MPD and then goes into it, corrupting her. Maxis learned how to merge with electronics in the crazy place. Richtofen gets Dr. Groff to teleport Maxis to the moon so he can get Samantha to leave the MPD, but Maxis orders Samantha to kill them, and then he proceeds to kill himself, or someone shot him, but it's believed that he killed himself. But before he merges with the electronics first, because that's a smart thing to do. This means Samantha is now eliminating everything Group 935. By the way, Samantha can control zombies in the MPD, so yeah. So let's go on to Doris now that the background information is set. The Ultimates team head to a Group 935 station in Germany where weapons like the Wunderwaffe DG2, by the way, if you don't call that the Wunderwaffle, get out of my face, were made. Samantha ends up sending a horde of zombies there since she's destroying all of Group 935. Richtofen shoots the teleporter with a DG2 and teleports away. This is the first time they travel through time and space, and they go to Kino der Toten, a German theater set in 1963. Richtofen left something behind, however. He dropped his diary, a small domino effect from Shi no Numa. The Russians find it and begin reading. So moving on, Kino was a surprise to Richtofen. He didn't even know it existed since Maxis kept that facility a secret. So the place wasn't a goal to be teleported to, they just wanted to escape Doris. The Ultimates crew decided to stick around by order of Richtofen to discover the dark secrets Group 935 have. Kino actually shedded a ton of light on some backstory with a potential zombie cure in Group 935. Long story short, Maxis had a test subject known as 2-6, and it was going super well for a while. One morning they're testing and 2-6 attacks a handler, so Maxis has to destroy both 2-6 and the handler. But a truth is hidden here. 2-6 attacks someone Maxis had a complicated relationship with known as Sophia. She was bit on the arm and started to have fevers and cold sores. She wanted to keep it secret so she wouldn't be killed by Maxis. Maxis calls her into his office sometime in the near future and has a sit down with her. He gives her tea and brings up the rumor that Sophia is bitten. A minute later, Sophia starts choking and falls to the ground. She was poisoned by Maxis. This was so she didn't turn, and Maxis seeks a way to conserve her soul. From Kino, the group teleports to Ascension. Here's the thing, Group 935 is disbanded and Samantha is making sure none of it remains. What sucks is that the US and Russia went to Doris, hence how the Russians got Richtofen's diary, and started to grab things for research. Russia took half of the teleporter while the US took the other half, alongside other things. A small thing the US took was the Winter's Howl's blueprint. So the events of 5 and Ascension are happening at the same time. This is known because in Ascension, you can pick up a phone that is ringing where you hear the 5 crew talking. This must mean that at some point the Russians and Americans decided to work together, and what Germany was working on. Going into the Pentagon, 5 is set with 4 characters that anyone can recognize. John Fortnite Kennedy. Nah, okay. Can't associate that legend with Fortnite. My apologies, guys. John F. Kennedy, Fidel Castro, Richard Nixon, and Robert McNamara. Earlier mentioned the Americans got half of the teleporter, which happened to be the base frame. Going around 5, you can see the teleporters everywhere going around the map. Now the reason the 4 people are in the Pentagon are to discuss the tensions of the Cold War. The zombies break in during the meeting in JFK, locks and loads. Love that cutscene, man.
And the world, do not stand still. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. I said, are certain to miss the future.
Coño, I missed that.
Prime Minister Castro, this missile crisis was the last straw. We almost blew ourselves up. Now, we invited you here today...
In good faith?
In good faith. To sort this thing out.
And why is he here? He lost.
As I always say, forgive your enemies, but remember their names. Now, gentlemen, as I like to think, in the long history of the world, that there are only a few generations.
Sounds like someone breaking in!
It's just a storm, Dick. Sit down.
Oh my God!
It appears the Pentagon has been breached.
Zombies. Gentlemen, at times like these, our capacity to retaliate must be, and has to be, massive to deter all forms of aggression. Gentlemen, lock and load.
Cutscene, man. Their fates may have been on the unfortunate side, where evidence from a radio in Ascension shows Robert McNamara hiding in a closet, saying he believes the President and the VIPs are dead. That's the last we hear, so an assumption that they are dead is only fair. Moving on to Ascension, there's a lot of background to cover. A man by the name of Gersh set up two different projects, Project Thunder and Project Mercury. Project Thunder was obviously the Thunder Gun, and Project Mercury was the Gersh device. The thing about the Gersh device is that they wanted it to be a portable teleporter, and they were using the teleporter half they got for reference. A small note about what they were making was it had a link to the Aether, something Samantha also has direct link since she's in the MPD. Gersh had an assistant by the name of Yuri, who was getting distracted, so Gersh said adios and put Yuri onto rocket work. Yuri felt this was undeserved. What the heck's wrong with my scripts? Undeserved, and he is too smart to send monkeys into the atmosphere, hence the space monkeys boss round things. Yuri didn't fight it, and he settled. After some time has passed, Yuri noticed weird sightings around the Ascension facility, such as a Matryoshka doll and a teddy bear. Funny fact is no kids are allowed in the facility, so what's going on? After more time passes, Yuri comes across a diary, another domino effect of Shino Numa, of course, and after reading, he starts to work with 115 since he reads about it. Since he was so close to it and whatnot, Samantha can now speak to him as a voice in his head. Samantha has the main goal to eliminate all that is Group 935, and since their work was there, she needed to end them all. She also needed Gersh out of the way so she gets Yuri to kill him. The way he accomplishes this is by entering the Mercury lab with a completed version of the Gersh device and gets Gersh to turn it on, thus sucking Gersh into the Aether. Yuri laughs, but Samantha leaves his head, and then he realizes he has killed his friend, so he starts to cry. Samantha then starts the attack and kills everyone, including Yuri. So when the Ultimus crew arrives at Ascension and they hear Gersh, he informs the crew that the only way he can escape is by getting the crew to turn on the Casimir mechanism. As the crew fixes the mechanism, Gersh is constantly screaming in fear because Samantha has direct access to the Aether so she can torment Gersh to her liking. The crew ends up freeing Gersh, but his body is missing. This is because he came out as a white orb, and no body, that's with a space, no body. So nobody's body can escape the Aether. Once you enter the Aether, your body is stuck there forever. So Gersh is free to roam wherever he wants as a white orb through time and space. Before Call of the Dead is discussed, there's backstory here too. Nazi Germany had bases everywhere within, and this included Siberia. Richthofen had 3 test subjects where he was trying to figure out how to unlock the mind. This was Takio, Nikolai, and a Mexican by the name of Pablo Escobar. When he killed Pablo by removing his spleen, he needed a replacement. Lucky enough, Dempsey was captured, but an American spy got away. Richthofen is now suspicious of all Americans in Group 935, and this includes a man named Dr. Harvey Yena. He is responsible for making the scavenger. One of my favorite weapons actually is the scavenger. It's pretty rad. Cool sniper. If you played Call of the Dead, you should know. Good George killing machine. He used 115 to make this. After some tests, Richthofen got some weird results from where Nikolai was functionless without vodka, Takio could only speak in Japanese proverbs, and Dempsey had extreme anger. He then wiped their minds. Now we have a star cast at Call of the Dead with George Romero in 2011. Rest in peace, George Romero. But why Siberia? Of all the locations. Well, he chose Siberia because this is where the experiments happen. George stumbled upon Nazi documents that he read. He read all about Element 115 and zombies and teleportation and all that and whatnot. So he needed a reason to head somewhere where this happened, and so he decided to shoot a movie in Siberia. He gathers Danny Trejo, Michael Rooker, Sarah Gellar, and Robert Englund for the film. Romero was taking notes on what he found and making sure he gathered any information he could. Later on, someone did something stupid. They touched something they shouldn't have and awoken the undead. A zombie picks up Romero and says, "I'm about to head out," thus infecting Romero. What about our Ultimus crew? Well, they teleported to Siberia to get the golden rod, but, they accidentally went to 2011 and they were locked in a closet where their fuse is destroyed. So that's a big rip for them. He enlists the help of the Call of the Dead cast to help get the golden rod alongside a fuse, after which they leave the Shangri-La. As for the rest of the cast, it's presumed they died. We don't get any word on them. The Ultimus crew teleports to Shangri-La. They go there to acquire the focusing stone, so Richtofen can finally defeat Samantha. However, during their time there, they hear two guys trapped named Brock and Gary. At the end of the Easter egg, the crew gets dynamite and blows open the wall Brock and Gary are trapped in, and at the same time, the wall that had the focusing stone behind it. To understand this, I have to step back for a second. Brock and Gary are two explorers, and they wanted to find the Shangri-La temple, and the main goal was so Brock could discover Agartha, the perfect world. And he believed the temple had a link where they could arrive into Agartha. They stumbled onto the stone and an altar that had Richtofen written across it. One of them grabbed the stone that was levitating there, and they are teleported through time. Now there's an eclipse and zombies are closing in. They run into the temple, eventually dying. However, they are brought back to where they got there, to when they got there. Oh, holy crap, dude. I'm not even gonna, take that out because I'm tired and I don't feel like reading all of that again. They are stuck in a time loop where they keep dying over and over again. When Richtofen and gang blew up the wall and they escaped, they got teleported back into the loop again, so they're stuck there forever. Sally actually ran into the duo, but unseen. Long story short, she got trapped in the loop too. However, she may be aware of it. Who's Sally? Well, she's an assistant of George, and she was looking for him in Siberia, but ended up getting teleported into Shangri-La, where she gets stuck in the loop. So with the firepower they need to defeat Samantha, the Ultimus crew teleports to Griffin Station on the moon, ready to get the dub. Richtofen does a spin and switches bodies with Samantha, putting her in his body and taking her body for zombies control. Now he has access to the Aether. Remember Max's? Well, he's still in the electronics, and he instructs the crew now with Samantha in Richtofen's body to shoot missiles to Earth to disconnect Richtofen with the Aether. However, he's still in the MPD, so he tries to stop them with the zombies, but fails. The fate of the crew are later discussed. With the Earth destroyed, 4 survivors are introduced as Rustman, Marlton, Misty, and Stoolinger. I'm going to make their story short and sweet, and I'll probably make another video solely based on their travels. Stoolinger was part of a group called The Flesh, where they ate zombies. Yeah, how fun. Since he did that, he had contact with Richtofen, who is still in the MPD. He instructs Stoolinger to activate pylons for him from transit to Die Rise and onto Buried. However, Richtofen has competition. Maxis is speaking to them through electronics. So the Easter egg on the Victus crew maps are two-sided. You can choose the path of Maxis or Richtofen. Choosing the side of Richtofen, he will make sure Maxis ceases to exist and will go into Stoolinger's body, but has trouble physically adapting, so he leaves him for a little. Choosing the side of Maxis will unfold that he was corrupted by the Dark Aether, and he makes Richtofen a zombie. Maxis also says he will kill everyone and make sure Earth will no longer exist. So, long story short, Maxis is like, yeah, I'm killing everyone, sorry boys, I'm evil at heart, and Richtofen, he was gonna leave some people alive for playtime. Pretty gay, but that's Richtofen. Now, Mob of the Dead is weird because the zombies' eyes are red, meaning neither Richtofen nor Samantha control them. Also, the map seems out of nowhere and confusing. Well, it's a purgatory. Al, Finn, Billy, and Sal are trapped here due to their actions. Al was formulating a plan to escape, and the other 3 eventually grew tired of him and killed him on the roof. The warden ended up sending them to the electric chair death. This is important for later. Their lives before death was set in Dimension 63, a dimension where Shadows of Evil takes place. Now that we're speaking of other dimensions, why not bring up the last map of Black Ops 2? Origins. Was this map a doozy? Not only did it take place in another dimension, the ending made every Zombies fan question everything. We'll get to that though. This crew can be referenced as the Primus crew. In this dimension, Maxis is a good guy and the Primus crew are good people. Richtofen and Maxis are good friends, and Group 9 through 5 was initiated in the 1910-ish era. Origins takes place in a battlefield of the Great War. Origins is an excavation site where they are trying to get element 115. Maxis gets exposed to it and is catatonic, so Richtofen removes his brain. For this map to happen, the Maxis ending has to happen and buried, so Samantha can see the pure evil and contact this dimension's Maxis for help. That's what we do. We help Samantha escape her imprisonment, and we get an ending that's a slap to the face. It shows Samantha and Eddie playing with toys of the Ultimus crew. They are killing toy zombies, and makes the whole zombie storyline seem like it was all a game. Well, it wasn't. In fact, the Origins ending didn't even happen after Origins. It happens after the map Gorod Krovi. In the end cutscene, you hear Maxis call down the children after an alarm goes off and instructs them to close the window. Now going into Revelations, a radio can be heard in the map where Maxis is worrying about the team not returning, and he's talking to Monty. They return when an alarm goes off, just like in the Origins cutscene. Then he says the exact same thing he said within that Origins outro cutscene. The entire Zombies community basically got trolled. That's the fun of zombies. When you think you know something, you don't. When you think you know the order, you don't. Events happen as they please in whatever universe or whatever time. So let's do a quick recap. There's a plane crash near Noct. Marines died in zombies outbreak. Group 935 have human test grounds. Peter McCain spies on Verrucht. He gets compromised. Goes to Shinonuma. Dempsey gets captured. Richtofen tests his teleportation. Stumbles upon MPD. Stumbles upon the focusing stone. Supposedly kills Samantha and Maxis with a teleporter. Samantha gets stuck to MPD. Maxis learns to merge with electronics. Richtofen has 3 test subjects for mind control: Nikolai, Takio, and Pablo. Accidentally kills Pablo, so replaces him with Dempsey. Goes to Shinonuma to retrieve his notes and diary that make a plan against Samantha. Has the Deriz for additional items. Zombies outbreak. Shoots an overload teleport with DG2 and escapes to Kino with Nikolai, Dempsey, and Takio. Explores Group 935 base he didn't know about. Goes to Ascension. Saves Gurish. Goes to Call of the Dead. Gets trapped. Gets the rod from the Starcast, who ends up dying. Goes to Shangri-La. Gets the focusing stone. Goes to Moon. Transfers the body of Samantha. Controls the zombies. Maxis blows up the earth. Richtofen disconnects from the Aether. Maxis and Richtofen are 2 sides within the Victus story they choose from. Maxis gets the dub. Samantha contacts Mission 63's Maxis Primus. We agrees to help. Samantha escapes Agartha, and this leads us to the next map, the Giant. So you know all award at War of the Black Ops 2? Well, after the Giant, it's done. Non-existent. Not only did Monty erase evil Maxis, but he took Samantha away from the house to erase all of the Dark Aether. The Primus group teleport forward in time to when Richtofen killed, quote-unquote killed, Maxis and Samantha, and decides to kill Ultimus Richtofen right there. This is where most of the fractures throughout time happen, and where the root of the cause of the rifts happen. Primus Richtofen is set to make a better tomorrow. In this map, the group start to question Richtofen since he's acting weird. Dempsey saw Richtofen messing with the dead body, and he asks Nikolai what he thinks, to which he responds with hatred towards Richtofen. Nikolai does not trust him. Takio is a bit different on the matter, for he feels Richtofen has a plan that will be revealed in time, and that everyone should trust him. When Richtofen is talking to Takio, Richtofen brings up the Emperor to distract Takio from the conversation Takio brought up about Richtofen's plan. Gotta love the third person. Takio mentions dreams he had about kids in a house. He's having visions. It's foreshadowing. He also had one of the Shadow Man. The crew must light a beacon so Maxis can find where and when they are. They light the beacon and are rescued. Enter Dimension 63's Morgue City. This map serves the purpose for the summoning key. The 4 characters, Nero, Jessica, Floyd, and Jack, are ordered by a being known as the Shadow Man to do rituals where they sacrifice other people that are somewhat related to the characters. These rituals eventually lead to the Shadow Man stabbing the crew in the back and releasing the Apothecons to this dimension so the team ends up defeating the Shadow Man and trap him inside the summoning key. Now a keeper is about to take the summoning key for safekeeping, and out of the blue, Primus Richtofen comes through a portal, snatches the summoning key, and leaves. He's promising to save his world. The next day, the dimension is destroyed by Apothicons. They will be discussed later. The Primus crew then arrives at Eagle's Nest to Riesendrache, a Group 935 base. Some backstory. On January 1st, 1300, Richtofen instructs the Wolf King to build Riesendrache. September 19th, 1318, the king's dying wish is for Arthur to scatter his bones across the Riesendrache. Arthur ends up doing this with the king's wolf. A temporal rift opens up the next day, teleporting Arthur to Resolutions 1295 in the year 2025. Believe it or not, Leroy is Arthur, the guy I'm buried. Yeah, it's pretty insane. A good question is, how did Richtofen instruct the Wolf King to build Riesendrache? I mean, it was in the 1300s. We'll get to that later. Next stop is Zetsubu no Shima, another Division 9 base. Some background is the Emperor was getting jealous of Takeo. He saw that his victories made him look awesome, and he's starting to look like a threat. So what does the Emperor do? He orders the base to keep Takeo on the island at all costs, so Takeo ends up being imprisoned under the wave and is experimented on with plants. Fast forward, and Primus arrives ready to get another soul. During the cutscene, Ultimus Takeo reveals to Primus Takeo that the orders came from the Emperor to trap him there. Takeo becomes uneasy at the fact the Emperor is evil. Now they commit Sudoku. Sorry, I said that on purpose. Please don't kill me, weebs, especially you, Gio. And the soul is retrieved. Next is Gorod. In the intro cutscene, you can see Peter McCann falling. This is weird, but an explanation is when Peter was falling back into Shinonuma, the Rising Sun facility, a rift opens under him, teleporting him into Gorod. Lucky enough, he had the parachute. In this fracture, the Battle of Stalingrad never ends, and it's in a stalemate with robots, dragons, and the undead. When Primus arrives, 1.0 Nikolai is fighting dragons in a super suit robot thing. A dragon wrecks Nikolai, and now we help him defeat the dragon. Now that we have helped Nikolai, we offer a quick death, and he fights back, ultimately ending in his death. Now with all the souls retrieved, the kids are safe at the house, but Maxis had to be an idiot. It wasn't his fault. He didn't have a soul. What did he do? He was lured by the Shadow Man into the summoning key, where the Shadow Man escaped, making quick work of Agartha and letting all the Apothicons in. In the intro cutscene of Revelations, we also see how Element 115 got into the Earth in the first place. It was the Apothicons. They wanted to start a war with humanity, and it worked. The Great War. It happened around the late 1200s. We'll get to that in a minute. With the threat of the Shadow Man, Primus is sent to stop him, and they do at the end of the Easter egg. You see Sophia and the entity of Maxis with the summoning key fly into the Apothicon sun and reset Agartha back to its perfect state. Now hold on, Primus is still here. How's that even possible? Well, it's possible because they drank the blood of people from closed off dimensions, creating a paradox. Monty sends them back to the Great War in the late 1200s, and they defeat the Apothicons. Then they disappear. Shrines are built of them in France. This is what you see in Origins, actually. Before I move on to Black Ops 4, I'm going to discuss a few things that I promised I would. The MPD is actually an Aether pyramid. It was hidden on the moon after the Apothicons were about to take an L. The thing about it is that sure, it's a direct passage to the Aether, which is a great power, but it's dark and corrupt. In fact, that's how Apothicons were made. At first, only Keepers existed, but some of them stumbled upon a dark Aether, thus making them corrupt Keepers. They then made their own faction, clan thing, whatever the heck it's called, known as Apothicons. So in the beginning, there was Monty and the Shadow Man. The summoning key was used to create Agartha, something not the Shadow Man, not Apothicons, none of that were allowed in. It's perfect. The Cornorium is all a reality in a book. Anyone can read it. Victus is sent by Primus Richtofen to an empty Earth to retrieve the book. There's a thing called the Primus cycle. It's the Great War all the way to Revelations. Something I forgot to mention earlier was that after Zetsubu no Shima, Primus heads to the Alcatraz prison to retrieve blood vials. This is to create that paradox. They then return to Zetsubu for an unknown reason. Monty only keeps the cycle going because it keeps him access to the Aether. That's the only way he can remain powered. Something he has in common with a Shadow Man, actually. The last thing is the Chaos story and Black Ops 4. Yeah, it's irrelevant, and it won't be discussed. That burp felt good. Now let's jump into Blood of the Dead. So as we know, Primus teleports to Richtofen's lab, which is under Alcatraz, to quickly grab the blood. But this time it's different. They teleport into the actual prison and end up being late. This causes Richtofen there waiting to grow suspicious of the timeline. He grows suspicious of the timeline because in the Chronorium, Primus Richtofen was not supposed to be late. He then reads it again and realizes the pages have changed. Once Primus arrives, Richtofen gives them the blood and instructs Primus Richtofen to read the Chronorium again. Richtofen grows furious and you can hear him say, "Our blood, my blood." This is foreshadowing to the ending. He reads that he has to die in order for everyone to escape. It's sad because he's the least deserving to die for everything that he is doing for the right of the universe. So then he quickly tries to escape so he doesn't have to die, but the warden has other ideas and breaks the portal from the prison to wherever they were going, probably the house, and they're stuck. One must remember that the dimension is closed off, so they can't just open a portal and leave. Richtofen's blood happens to be charged by Aether due to all of his travels through time and whatnot, so he is the key to everyone's escape. But he's also a liability since he can be captured and used by the Shadow Man. Fast forwarding to the ending, Richtofen enters a dark mechanism, but something happens. Another Richtofen wakes up from the lab. It's the Great War Richtofen. He has on the robe that the Great War heroes wore in the late 1200s. He walks out, uses what's assumed to be the crystal that powers an original staff, and kills the warden. Then he goes over to Nikolai, giving him the Chronorium and making him the leader of the group. Great War Richtofen walks over to Primus Richtofen and destroys his blood vials, making sure no paradox exists and that this will end once Monty is confronted. Then they all leave through separate portals, not even saying thank you or goodbye to Richtofen. It's sad, and Richtofen deserves a better death, but what can we do? The map classified answers a question that we've had since Black Ops 1. What happened to the original Ultimus crew? Well, one must remember in Black Ops 3, the 1.0 characters we killed were part of fractured universes. The post-Moon characters were actually put into experimentation at Area 51. I know that's bizarre, right? That sucks because they were already, went through all of that from Richtofen, right? So they have to do it all again. When they were found by Cornelius Purnell, they were in a catatonic state. By that I mean, they're basically lifeless, but the true lifeless person in this situation is Dr. Edward Richtofen, the Ultimus version of him. This is because in Buried, at the end of the game, or the Easter egg, I should say, Dr. Maxis decides to be like, "Yo, dude, I won," because Victus started to help him for some reason. And when Victus helped Maxis decided to pluck Richtofen out of the MPD, out of Samantha's body, and put him inside a zombie. And on the comic books, you can see zombie Richtofen roaming around being like, "Yo, what's up, dude, zombie Richtofen." He's actually pursuing Victus in the comics. That's a long story. Again, I said I'd make that in another video. So, post-Buried, actually no, this is going to be post-Origins, Monty decided to take Samantha out of Richtofen's body, so now Richtofen's body is an empty vessel. I know, it's weird, very complicated. So, since Richtofen's body is an empty vessel, he's lifeless. He's out of there, done, gone, basically. But he still has a heartbeat. He still has, life, just no soul. So, catatonic. So, now we're on to the events at Classified. Now, Classified takes place in the 1960s. I'm not sure the exact year, but you gotta remember this is pre-Moon that we're playing as. Post-Moon is here. They're at Area 51 in Hangar 4. I could be wrong about that. They're in one of the hangars, right? At Area 51, Groom Lake. You know this because when you throw a grenade at one of the hangars, you hear Dempsey, I believe, talking. That's Post-Moon right there, the one in the hangar. Pre-Moon is who we're playing as. As seen in the intro cutscene for Classified, you see Dempsey shoot the shrink ray as they're teleporting. Richtofen's like, you idiot. And then they bounce off the moon. They didn't make it to the moon. They're at Classified now, the Pentagon. And they're here for a little bit. They're just trying to get to the moon. They don't care about being there. Little funny Easter eggs found where Richtofen puts a portrait of himself in Classified, and that intro cutscene and answers that question with like, whoa, what's Richtofen's portrait doing here in the map 5? It's pretty crazy, huh? This is kind of complicated, so I'm going to break it down as best of my ability. I need you to ignore the fact that you're on the map, the moon, the map as Ultimus, and just set your mind on post Black Ops 1. The characters are stuck on the moon. Dr. Schuster's working with the Pentagon at the US in the 1960s, which is when the map takes place, and he accidentally teleports the catatonic Nikolai, Takio, Dempsey, and lifeless Richtofen to Area 51. This is because he had been exposed to 115 for too long. Richtofen is lifeless because at the end of Moon, he switches bodies with Samantha. At the end of Buried, Maxis puts Richtofen in the zombie's body. At the end of Origins, Monty puts Samantha's soul in Agartha in the house. So the Richtofen vessel is basically empty. There's no soul to occupy it. Now Purnell is testing on them, and since they have all of this 115, that's one sentence and I'm retarded. One night, the zombie Richtofen, he's Richtofen's soul, by the way, he has Richtofen's soul in him. More in the zombies comic books, which I'll explain another day. So one night, the zombie Richtofen, he teleports to his vessel while they're in a jail cell, and he puts his soul back. This turns him into dust, and Richtofen is now, woo, yeah, I'm like alive, yay. Now, the crew you play as in Classified is before Moon. One must remember that time travel was at play. The post-Black Ops 1 characters are from 2025, since that's when Moon takes place, and the Ultimus crew in Classified are from Shangri-La. Playing on Classified, you're there as the Ultimus crew, but here's the thing. They just finished up getting the focusing stone, and they're supposed to go to the moon next. I don't know if this is because of a fracture, or this actually happens in the continuity. It seems like it happens in the continuity, otherwise, how would the Richtofen portrait get into 5? Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Dempsey shoots the shrink gun while they're teleporting to the moon, and it causes the teleporter to shoot them to the Pentagon. Bounces right off the moon. Now we have 2 crews at the Pentagon. Well, actually, 1 crew at the Pentagon and 1 crew at Area 51. Like previously mentioned, we have post-moon. Now we have pre-moon. Very confusing, I know, I'm sorry. Now, since the pre-moon crew is here by accident, they just want to go to the moon to finish the grand scheme. In the ending cutscene that I didn't get to experience for myself until I had to look it up on YouTube because James sent me out of my account while I was on a JRTC trip, you know, like on around what, 80 something? Yeah, I would have gotten a 150 and experienced it for myself. I would have. I had a good game going in that game. You see Primus go into the cell that Post-Moon are in, and Primus Nikolai, being in charge, recruits them to fight in the Great War. But first, they need to retrieve the Elemental Shard. Enter Alpha Omega, the map that revived the zombies community, for now at least. The combined Primus and Ultimus crew head here because Primus Nikolai needs to get the Elemental Shard. Alpha Omega takes place in Nuketown, a Broken Arrow facility in Nevada. A little into the map and you run into Rushmore. He explains that an accident happened 50 years ago prior, and he was dormant all of that time. The crew needs to prove themselves in order for Rushmore to help grab the elemental shard. On the core values, or the last one I should say, we learned that the shard, what the shard does, not that the shard does. I'm pretty retarded. I'm pretty much of a retard myself. I'm sure I can relate with everyone watching. We learn of one of the things it can do, not what it does, one of the things it can do, because I'm sure it does a lot more than what it did in the map. It can revive from the dead. Peter McCain was put into an 80 AM, aka Atom Robot, where, long story short, he snitched to the CDC on Purnell due to the actions, and Purnell wanted to do one last experiment where he got revenge. On the Easter egg, we put Peter in an orb so he can float around, thus allowing us to head down to the APD, where the shard is held, and we beat the egg. Oh, but there has to be a boss fight, and what do you know? We learn of the accident. The accident that had Purnell missing for ages. It turned him into the Avogadro, the electric beam from Transit. It's pretty cool. He wants to get to Agartha like everyone else in this story, and he sets off a nuke on Nuketown, proving his power. The crew defeats him and we get the shard. Now time for a cliffhanger, because in the ending cutscene, Monty realizes that the souls haven't been delivered yet. He was already suspicious that Nikolai, Dempsey, and Takiyo's soul haven't arrived yet, and now when they were gone that long, Monty grew aware of the plan to stop the cycle, and he kills Maxis. Max is in a dying effort since Eddie and Samantha to the crew, and now Samantha is ready to fight the war and avenge her father. She's ready to end Monty by destroying the Aether, Agartha, the Infinite, everything. Yo, that's the entire thing. Wow. What is this, gonna be like 40 minutes? It's pretty crazy. If I included Victus, it would have been like an hour or something, and if I included some of the plot holes I missed, this would probably have gone 2 hours. Yo, why you being a dog? I'm sure I messed up on a few parts too. I think on, there was something I missed, and I realized like at the end, because I was doing more research, it'll probably be in text somewhere, because I'm going through the entire thing over again, and I'm just gonna edit it as best as I can. Yeah, have an early day. Gio's gay, James is fat. Oh wait, no, that's the other way around, my bad. And Zeke needs to rely on amiibos to win any games he ever plays on Smash.